Welcome, everyone, to our Thursday workshops for the Non-Residential Scholars Program for Ukraine. We're very grateful to the Big Ten Academic Alliance's Senior International Officers Group for supporting this program this year, as well as all nine collaborating Big Ten universities that are participating and sponsoring fellowships this year. It's my distinct honor to introduce our next speaker. And if I can get on the right page here, and it's Dr. Natalia Shlikhta, who is professor of history at the National University of Kyiv-Mohyla Academy, where she teaches bachelor's, master's, and doctoral courses on Soviet history, 20th century European history, and Ukrainian socio-religious history. She received her PhD from Central European University in 2005. And Dr. Shlikhta's major research interests are ecclesiastical history of the 20th century and contemporary period, especially the Ukrainian Greek Catholic and the Orthodox churches, as well as Soviet history. She's the author of many peer-reviewed articles in various languages. She's the author of several monographs, including a monograph entitled The Church of Those Who Survived, Soviet Ukraine, mid-1940s to early 1970s. And it's a real pleasure to invite her to speak today on the topic of Ukrainian churches facing challenges during the Russo-Ukrainian War, issues, sources, and preliminary results. And I'll just conclude my introduction by noting that Dr. Shlikhta's participation in the Non-Residential Scholarship Program for Ukraine this year is made possible by the University of Maryland, particularly the College of Arts and Humanities, and specifically the Department of History. So many thanks to our colleagues at Maryland for partnering with us, and many thanks to you, Dr. Shlikhta, for presenting your important research today.
Thank you so very much, Sarah. And I would like to start my talk today with saying thank you to all those responsible for making this scholarship possible, this program possible, to the Indiana University, to my host, University of Maryland, individually to my peer, Piotr Kositsky there. And thank you for having me here in the program and helping me to conduct my research and providing me with an opportunity to share my research with you. Thank you. And here is once again the title of my presentation today here, and I would like to start my talk with some brief remarks on the historical background, methodology, historiography, and the source base for my study. And here is the survey I would like to draw your attention to, which is the survey of the Razumkov Center from November 2023. And what this survey shows to us is that the vast majority of Ukrainians consider themselves to be religious in one sense or another. Deep research shows actually that for the majority of those people who consider themselves being religious, religion is mainly a matter of national identification. And not surprisingly, the vast majority of those who consider themselves to be religious identify themselves either with Orthodoxy or with the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. And both Orthodox churches and the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church are widely considered to be traditional churches of the Ukrainian people, bearers of national identity, etc., etc. And exactly these churches are the focus of my research because I am generally concerned with these churches, with Orthodoxy, with Eastern Christian churches. Also, I would like
Dr. Shlikhta, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Your slides are not
Yes.
advancing. Do you mean to be advancing your slides or?
Well, thank you so very much. Yes, yes. So it doesn't work. Great. Thank you so very much,
Sure.
Sarah. So
Ah,
I'll
now we see this the third slide, religion in Ukrainian society.
yes.
Okay.
Let's do like this. If not, then I'll and
Mm-hmm.
what's now? Is
Yes,
it moving
perfect.
now?
It is. Thank you
The,
so much.
oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Great. So here you have you see these figures by by Razumkov Center, and also many Ukrainians consider the church to be an important national institution. The public trust in the church is from relatively to very high, and people also consider the church to be a moral authority. And I've started my presentation with these figures just to show that my research has not only purely scholarly interest for me, but it also allows us to add to our understanding of the Ukrainian society during the war. Actually, during our seminars and also today, we had an opportunity to examine various aspects of the Russian-Ukrainian war, various aspects of the life of the Ukrainian society during the war. And here is one more additional aspect, I think, important aspect to know. And here's the next slide. Yes, yeah. Thank you. So it works. And I would like to start talking when defining the general background and the context. I would draw our attention to the Revolution of Dignity, because exactly the Revolution of Dignity of 2000, of November 2013, 2014, early 2014, is the turning point that starts the current history of Ukrainian churches. Because the revolution and the beginning of the Russian war in March 2014, these events accelerated the consolidation of pro-Ukrainian forces around the idea of a local church and of a complete break of this church with Moscow. You know that what's the revolution of dignity meant, and as many observers and researchers agree, it marked the birth of civil society in Ukraine and necessarily brought to the fore the question of the mission and role of the church in the contemporary world, and of the loyalty of the church to its secular homeland or its imperial ecclesiastical center. And here I mean the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate. Most Ukrainian churches and religious organizations, and especially the Ukrainian Church of the Kiev Patriarchate and the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, were active participants of the Revolution of Dignity from its very beginning. Bishops and clergy remained with the protesters during the most violent attack clashes with Yanukovych's security service in January-February 2014. They stood and prayed between the barricades of protesters and the police, trying to stop the bloodshed and protect the Maidan participants. Ecumenical religious services from the Maidan stage and in the so-called prayer tents, mass confessions, communions, mass baptisms of Maidan participants, daily religious services, and sermons were all important components of the Maidan's daily life during the 3 revolutionary months. The priests of various confessions became non-heroic heroes as defined by Filipovich and Harkusha of the Revolution of Dignity, as they remained with the protesters in the most terrible days, fulfilling the immediate duties of prayer, confession, service to God, and help to those in need. Thus, since the Revolution of Dignity, social ministry has been understood by the Ukrainian churches as their primary mission in this world. And here on this slide, you see the words by the head of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, Archbishop Sviatoslav Shevchuk, who defines the church as a part of the civil society, emphasizing its relations to people, not to power. And thus, we might say, and actually scholars say, that Ukrainian churches assume the role which Jose Casanova described as public religions, meaning that in the modern world, religious institutions can become influential social actors and moral authorities only by abandoning traditionalist ideas about the role of religion and the church's dependence on state power, and instead becoming an integral part of civil society. And here comes the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate, because the revolution deepened the split that has always existed within this church between its pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian wing. The pro-Russian wing being the majority of the hierarchy of this church, and pro-Ukrainian wing being part of the hierarchy, a smaller part of the hierarchy, but the majority of the parish clergy. For the former, it was matter of principle to distance themselves from the condemnation of the Yanukovych's regime, violent actions against Ukrainian citizens, as this necessarily implied their disloyalty to the Moscow decision-making center. For the latter, it was equally fundamental to distance themselves from a pro-regime position, because, in the words of Cyril Hovorun, when society emancipates itself from the state, as is happening in Ukraine, the church risks at being isolated if it tries to maintain its so-called neutrality. The danger of being isolated for this church became even more urgent after the beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian war, when there was no question of avoiding condemnation of the aggression. The head of the church, the newly elected Metropolitan Onufriy Berezovsky, immediately appealed to both President Putin with the demand to respect the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and to Patriarch Kirill of Moscow, to influence the president and to prevent a fratricidal war. Patriarch Kirill's answer was unfortunately predictable. In August 2014, in a letter to the heads of local Orthodox churches, he described Russian aggression as a countermeasure to the Uniats and Schismatics' attempts to ruin canonical orthodoxy. He went even further in May 2015 when presenting the aggression in terms of a just spravedlivaya, just war against godlessness, which has become the state policy of Ukraine. Despite such declarative dissociations from Moscow neo-imperial policy as at the beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian war, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate has remained a soft power of the Russian Federation over the next decade, promoting the idea of the Russian world Ruski Mir and refusing to respond to public demands. And we'll continue talking about this church later on. And one more important development from this period I would like to draw your attention to, and this is the gaining the autocephaly by the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. The events of late 2013-2014 actualized the demand and catalyzed movements among post-Maidan politicians, society, Ukrainian churches, in support of a single local church. Their joint efforts resulted in Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew granting the Thomas of Autocephaly to the Orthodox Church of Ukraine on January 6, 2019. In the text of the document, the Patriarch called the newly established Autocephalous Church his spiritual daughter. And the reason for this, which he indicated, was the independence of the Ukrainian state and the long-standing and well-founded aspirations of Ukrainians to gain autocephaly. And once again, we'll be back to this later on. And before moving just to the focus of my research and some of my findings, I would like to briefly remark about some of these issues, about research done on the issue. I would say that the topic of my investigation is relatively well researched by less by historians, more by sociologists, anthropologists, specialists in religious studies, cultural studies, and political sciences. However, they primarily focus on the period before the full-scale invasion, which is understandable, and they focus on some issues while ignoring the others. For example, the issue that receives their primary attention is the idea, the concept of Ruski Mir, and how this idea is promoted through the channels of the Russian Orthodox Church and the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate. I would particularly like to mention studies by Andrei Fert, who is my former PhD student and who writes widely on Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate, and by Yulia Yurchuk, who researches something that she defines as the weaponization of the past by religious actors during the war, because these studies are particularly important for my research. And here you can see sources I'm using for my research, and actually these very diverse sources, and also a brief methodological remark. Being a historian, I am much more comfortable when dealing with the past than with the present. However, the Russian-Ukrainian war has changed a generally accepted perception of what can be done by a historian. And many historians turn their attention to what's defined by Timothy Garton Ash as the current history from their much more comfortable, remote past, for example, from my beloved 20th century. Done. And now to the focus of my study and to some of my findings. And I would start with this issue, the first important issue, which is the definition by the churches of their role and place in the wartime society. And I'm just put here this quote by this definition by Pavlos Metsnyuk, because I like it. It's actually shows how the issues that I'm researching are part actually of a wider problem of the decolonization of Ukrainian society during the Russian-Ukrainian war. So the Russian-Ukrainian, the full-scale invasion of February 24, 2022, united Ukrainians who had different ideological views, supported different political forces, spoke different languages, and attended different churches. Almost all religious institutions in Ukraine immediately and strongly condemned the invasion. They expressed their support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine and their readiness to contribute to the defense of the motherland by all possible means. on the day of the invasion, both Metropolitan Epiphany Dumenko, head of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, and Metropolitan Sviatoslav Shevchuk, head of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, strongly condemned the Russian invasion. And the decisions of the Holy Synods of both churches on the same day were very similar. When we analyze the official documents by these two churches, we could single out the following major points. First, the Russian enemy has violated all international obligations and norms of international law by attacking Ukraine. Next, the Ukrainian people have a natural right and a sacred duty to defend their homeland by all means, including force of arms. Then, the war against this enemy is an emanation of the eternal struggle between good and evil. The good always triumphs over the evil, life always triumphs over the death, and therefore Ukraine will certainly win. As defined by Metropolitan Sviatoslav, I quote, "The church as a mother and teacher is and will be with her children, will protect them and serve them in the name of God." Throughout the years of war, the All-Ukrainian Council of Churches and Religious Organizations, which unites almost 95% of religious communities in Ukraine, has been active in humanitarian and social activities inside the country and also promoted the Ukrainian agenda outside it. Special services, prayers, sermons, chaplaincy, volunteering for the armed forces of Ukraine and refugees, providing shelter for those in need, fundraising, charitable assistance, and other humanitarian aid, disseminating truthful information about the war through church and public channels, and thus refuting Russian neo-imperial narratives. All of this has become church routine since February 24th. This position is quite expected, given the self-awareness of the churches as important national and social institution, which was strongly articulated during the Revolution of Dignity. The second issue that receives my primary attention is the position of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate. And you see on this slide, head of the church, Metropolitan Onufriy Berezovsky, who already on February 24th, in his address to the faithful of the church and all Ukrainian citizens, called on President Putin to immediately stop the fratricidal war between the Ukrainian and Russian peoples. Moreover, he openly stated that it was Russia that started military actions against Ukraine, and therefore the church, I quote, expresses special love and support to all soldiers who are protecting and defending our land and our people. These were also the main points of the appeal of the Holy Synod of this church of February 28th, which stated that we fully share the pain and suffering of our people, and we're ready to help in every possible way those in need. Such the position of the church expressed in the first days of the full-scale war might have looked somewhat unexpected given the previous developments. Some commentators see the reasons for pronouncement like this, and also of the active humanitarian work of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate since February 21st. In this, I defend church. I'm sorry, just a second. In the church attempt to justify itself to the Ukrainian society. I'm sorry, for a long period of pro-Moscow position. And here on this slide, you see perhaps the most notorious figure important for this story, which is Metropolitan Pavlo Lebed, together with Putin. And the definition, I think, very important definition by Yuri Chernomorets of how this church perceives itself. And also here below on the slide is important statistical data showing the attitude of Ukrainians, changing attitude of Ukrainians toward this church. The impression that the full-scale war has changed the balance within the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate between its pro-Ukrainian and pro-Russian wings only intensified after the sermons of Patriarch Kirill on March 6 and March 13, 2022. Then the Patriarch repeated Putin's thesis about 8 years of genocide against the inhabitants of Donbass and blessed Soviet soldiers for the special military operation to protect the Russian motherland. I would also like to draw attention to the document adopted by the so-called World Russian People's Council on March 27, 2022, the council under Patriarch Kirill, which defines this war as the Holy Svященная война. The Russian aggression is described in this document as a crusade to protect, I quote, Russians' life, freedom, statehood, civilizational, religious, national identity, and also for their right to live on their land within the borders of a unified Russian state. These scandalous statements provoked an immediate and categorical response from the clergy of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate. For decades, they have been trying to reconcile contradictory loyalties to their secular homeland and Ukrainian people on the one hand, and to the Imperial Mother Church, an instrument for promoting Ruski Mir on the other. The revolution of dignity and the beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian war forced them for the first time to choose between identities that actually cannot be reconciled. With the outbreak of the full-scale Russian-Ukrainian war, the issue of loyalty to the nation state and its people has become as relevant as never before. This caused many centrifugal processes within this church. First, the powerful grassroots movement against Patriarch Kirill, which started already in March 2022 at the parish level. Andrei Fert proposes the term non-mentioning movement to refer to the massive refusals of parish clergy then to mention Patriarch Kirill during the liturgy. And some priests even demanded a church trial of Patriarch Kirill. Secondly, the idea of autocephaly of this church, of complete independence or formal independence from Moscow, found a new response among the clergy and hierarchy. An important step was taken by the Church Council on May 27, 2022, and this council amended the statutes of the church, and in these statutes, they deleted any mention of the direct subordination of this church to the Russian Orthodox Church. So actually, as later events showed, this was a very formal step accomplished by the hierarchy of this church, but still this very important step allowed them later on to claim that the Ukrainian Orthodox Church has no ties to the Russian Orthodox Church whatsoever. And actually here we can observe a very complex process at all the levels of this church. because we can see that this movement doesn't, or these aspirations doesn't mean and didn't mean move to the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, because for many of the church representatives, the Orthodox Church of Ukraine continues to be regarded as a political tool and non-canonical institution. The third process, which is very visible within the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate, is the split between the hierarchy and clergy. The main reason for this, in an attempt by the church hierarchy to reconcile the irreconcilable and to stay with Moscow, even when their churches and monasteries had been destroyed by the Russian artillery and parishioners were dying en masse at the hands of Russian soldiers. This wait-and-see position and an attempt of the hierarchy to sit on two chairs was manifested by the decisions of the Holy Synod of this Church on May 12, 2022. On the one hand, the document opens with the statement that this Church supports and will continue to support the defenders of Ukraine and provide charitable assistance to those in need. However, the statement goes on to repeat Russian narratives that the war was the result of the erroneous religious policy of the presidency of Petro Poroshenko and of the destructive ideology of the so-called Orthodox Church of Ukraine. And such statements only deepen the split inside this church. And a very important milestone here in these developments is the adoption by Verkhovna Rada on August 20th, 2022, of the law that forbids the activity of the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine, defined as the instrument of the aggressor state, and also of all religious organizations that are connected to the Russian Orthodox Church. And this law gave the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate 9 months to completely terminate its links with the Russian Orthodox Church. And these events restricts my study chronologically so far, even though many important events, important for my research events, took place after it. And here I would mention just two, some that received probably the most publicity recently. On July 2nd, 2025, President Zelensky terminated the citizenship of Metropolitan Onufry, who was found to be a holder of the Russian passport. And shortly afterwards, on September 28th, 2025, the State Service of Ukraine for Ethnic Affairs and Freedom of Conscience determined that despite the declarations and despite the formal documents, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church continues to maintain relations with the Russian Orthodox Church. And here's the last issue which is important part of my research, and I would like to briefly remark on this. About wartime destructions and persecutions. And according to the investigators of the Institute for Religious Freedom, during the first 21 months of the full-scale invasion, the Russian troops damaged or destroyed 630 religious sites in Ukraine. Some religious buildings became casualties of military operations. Others were deliberately damaged by the Russian troops. Reportedly, 9% of this number was ruined completely, and 16% more cannot be rebuilt. The largest number of damaged sites are located in Donetsk, at least 146, Luhansk, at least 83, Khersonsk, at least 78, and Kyiv, at least 73 oblasts. Expectedly, though paradoxically, churches of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate suffered the most from the Russian aggression. Their number was 143 in February 2023, according to the Institute of Religious Freedom. Also, many cases are documented of the seizure of religious buildings and their use as Russian military bases or to conceal the firing positions of the Russian troops. These actions cause further destruction of religious sites in Ukraine. Many of these religious sites are recognized as cultural property by UNESCO. As of July 2024, UNESCO has verified damage to 139 religious sites since February 24th. Some cases have generated much publicity and drawn special attention from Ukrainian and international audiences. And here on this slide, you see the case that probably gained the which is the best known in this regard, and is the Transfiguration Cathedral in Odessa that was destroyed because of the Russian missile attack on July 23, 2023. Even more than with the religious buildings damages, the cases of religious persecutions, just as are the Russian war crimes, in the Ukrainian regions temporarily occupied by Russia are difficult to document during the war. We can only rely on episodical testimonies made public thanks to human rights organizations or survivors themselves, and will not have a complete picture until the war ends. Currently, several organizations and projects monitor the situation with the freedom of conscience and religion under the Russian occupation. These are primarily the State Service of Ukraine for Ethnic Affairs and Freedom and NGO Institute for Religious Freedom, whom I've already mentioned, and also the Tribunal for Putin initiative. Even before the full-scale invasion, Institute for Religious Freedom prepared a number of resolutions supported by the majority of religious organizations in Ukraine on the challenges for freedom of conscience and religion in occupied Ukrainian territories, and appeal to international audience somehow to intervene on behalf of religious organizations. Russian war crimes against Ukrainian religious communities and individuals include the following. First, murders. As of January 2024, at least 25 priests of various confessions were killed or tortured to death. Second, imprisonments and tortures. According to the Kharkiv Human Rights Protection Group, as of February 2024, at least 20 priests were kidnapped. The fate of most of them remains unknown. Perhaps the best known case is of two Greek Catholic priests from Berdyansk. You see him here, them here on this photo. Fathers Ivan Levitsky and Bogdan Heleta, who were arrested on November 16, 2024 for their alleged extremist and terrorist activities and taken to prison in Russia. They were released from imprisonment only on June 28, 2024. Clergy and believers of the evangelical churches, Pentecostals, Baptists, Adventists, Charismatics, have become the primary target of persecution as American spies, sectarians, and enemies of the Russian Orthodox people. In the words of one survivor, a Russian officer explained to him, and I quote, "Evangelical believers like you should be completely destroyed since you are sectarians and American spies. but a simple shooting will be too easy for you. You need to be buried alive. Similarly, members of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church and Orthodox Church of Ukraine are persecuted by Russian soldiers and the occupying power. For example, in Zaporizhzhia Oblast, the Russian administration forbade the activities of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church and Caritas. With the assistance of the structures of the Russian Orthodox Church, Russian authorities force religious communities to accept Russian citizenship, join the Russian Orthodox Church, and register community according to the Russian law. As concluded, and here on this slide, you can see the conclusion by the Kharkiv Human Rights Protection Group that defines all these actions as persecutions based on the religious principles. And third, unfortunately, also deportations, because many cases are documented, have been documented so far, of priests' deportations from their homes to many deportation centers in Russia. My talk here today cannot have a formal conclusion because the Russian-Ukrainian war goes on, powerfully challenging religious life in Ukraine. Military actions threaten the lives of every Ukrainian, including Christian believers. Religious communities in the Ukrainian regions temporarily occupied by Russia are forced to survive day to day and become victims of persecutions for their faith. While for the Ukrainian national churches, Orthodox and Greek Catholic, the war has become a period for defining their mission in this world, principle of Christian service, and relations with Ukrainian society and civil homeland. I'm truly grateful for your attention, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shlikhta, for this very touching, I would say, presentation. So much important information and some really important things for all of us to keep in mind. And I see that Dr. Rivera has a question or a comment, so I'll invite him and any other colleagues to raise your hands and provide your feedback or questions for Dr. Shlikhta. So Roman, please go ahead.
Thank you, Natalia. Very interesting. So I wrote my comments because your speech, how to say, pushed some reaction of my mind. So Dostoevsky, Russians are very religious. Before he chops you down, he will, with an axe, he will definitely cross himself. So this is also profile of our enemy. Second, Ukrainian soldiers do become religious because I know this from my platoon. The guys coming to front line visited church. Many of them were there for first time. And the other third issue, the religion and psychological resilience are very important. It is important to have faith in anything, and this helps you to keep calm and resilient. Thank you. So no questions, you know better than me. So just wanted to express myself. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your comment. This indeed very much important, and I completely agree with you. And I'm grateful for your personal experience brought to all of us here today. And when you were talking, I recalled the definition by some of the Maidan participant who said that during the fire під час пожежі and during the war, there are no atheists. So, and this indicates this role of religion, which you've mentioned in your comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see Oksana Puhonska has your hand up. Please go ahead.
Good evening, dear colleagues, or good day, dear colleagues. Dear professors, thank you so much for such a good presentation. I have a question. We know that our Ukrainian authorities do so much to change the situation of influencing the Russian church in Ukraine into the people's mind, into the war. But how do you think, what could be done more for changing the persuasion of people? Because we know that the church is an organization, but without people it will be nothing. Yes, but I'm interested in maybe culture, maybe mass media, maybe something else will make some discourses or something else to change this persuasion of people who believe this church, who believe these doings with this church, which this church is doing in Ukraine. How do you think? What could be done more in Ukraine?
Thank you so very much for your question, which is very important. And actually, I don't know the answer. Something that I know very well, that it is such a difficult and immensely difficult task to change the perception of a believer, of a person who truly believes in something, and a person who adheres to some religious organization. And at the very beginning of my presentation, I've mentioned that for the majority of Ukrainians who consider themselves to be believers, religious people, for them, the church is a national institution. More than a religious institution. And if we take this into account, we won't be surprised that the beginning of the war and the beginning of the full-scale invasion led to the drop of people who associated themselves with the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate, and they completely turned their attention to the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, and this is a very natural development. The minority of people continue to identify themselves with the Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate. But for them, this identification is not the matter of their national identity, but it's a very important religious matter for them. If we examine the social composition of those people who attend churches of the Moscow Patriarchate, this would be mainly women, mainly elderly or middle-aged women. And for them, the church is has this, religious sense more than the national sense. I've mentioned in my presentation research by Andrei Fert, and Andrei Fert recently conducted interviews with these people exactly. And his question was, why you remain with this church here? So the war is on, and you are remaining with this church who serves as an instrument of the Russian propaganda. And the answer of these people was, no, that's not true. You are politicizing the issue. We are going to the church because that's because of my belief, because of all these things. And they referred to this. Documents by the hierarchy saying that no, we have no relations to Moscow, and also they refer to their daily church routine. Because now, if you attend the church of the Moscow Patriarchate, that defines itself simply as the Orthodox Pravoslavna Orthodox Church of Ukraine, and they completely deleted this of the Moscow Patriarchate. And that's true. During the liturgy, they do not mention Patriarch Kirill. So I don't know the situation somewhere in the east of Ukraine, but when you go to churches everywhere in Ukraine, they do not pray for Patriarch Kirill. So these people whom he interviewed, they answer, no, the church is not a political institution, just leave us, just give us a possibility to believe and to pray. And because of such attitude, which is not surprising at all, because that's the religion, as was just mentioned, that's it's a psychological resilience. It has so much meaning for a true believer. And because of this, I actually don't know how to change the persuasion of these people, at least how to change their persuasion by any intervention from outside and from above, and any these actions by the state, because they would say, okay, there's persecutions. Our priest, he is so lovely, and he is persecuted because he believes in God. So I'm sorry, that's not my answer, direct answer for a question, but this the indication that it's actually very difficult to change these people. Thank you so much for this question.
It's really a very complicated situation, and it's just a question without an answers for now. But we should do some. But we should do something.
Yes. So that's the problem. But even if you understand, you should do something.
Yeah, I suppose that this church is a very strong source of propaganda. And why I'm asking such a questions, because I think that cultural institutions and some another social institutions, we need to find some variants of contra propaganda for this, because in another case we have no just chance to win in this war.
Yeah,
thank you.
I do completely agree. Thank you.
Thank you, Oksana, for that really great question. Colleagues, what other questions do you have for Natalia? Tatiana Muzyka, please.
Thank you, Sarah. Dr. Shlikhta, thank you so much for such deep and great research today. And I have just a small comment. Thank you for this reminder and for these great statements that the church gives us, like the understanding of the point that the war also is the time to choose the sides, and Ukrainian church has always been chosen this side, but from another point also now we understand deeper what does it mean to sit on two chairs actually. And I had a question maybe following the previous question about the statistics that you told us about the statistic that about 2021, just before the full-scale war, 13% of Ukrainians called themselves as faithful to the Ukrainian Orthodox Church Moscow Patriarchate. And then, of course, 2 years later, this number decreased significantly. And do you maybe have at least approximate a number how many people have the same point of view right now? And also my second question is also, if I remember, you mentioned religious and church maybe as a soft power. Don't you think personally that Ukrainian church might be a bit more stronger, maybe more powerful in our attitude to Ukrainian Orthodox Church Moscow Patriarchate? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your both questions, which are very important. For the first question about the statistics, I don't have the most recent statistics. As I've told you, so I restricted myself with this law of August 20th, 2024. But if we compare statistics that I've showed to you from 2023, and the statistic from the next year, 2024, not from 2025, I don't know. So it's just the same figures. And actually, we have a very little little number of parishes moving from the, because, you know, the parish, according to the Ukrainian law, has right to decide and can choose its allegiance whatever the position of the head of the hierarchy of the church. So very few parishes actually moved from the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, Pravoslavna, Orthodox Church of Ukraine.
Yes.
So it's so many Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchate to the Orthodox Church of Ukraine. So that's it. And for your second question, yes, I do completely agree with you. And actually, so in the course of my research, I've noted lots of criticism coming from not only from observers, but lots of criticism coming from believers, from Ukrainians, from Ukrainian Christians, saying, directed to the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, and the very soft, very mild position of the hierarchy of the head of the church, Metropolitan Sviatoslav, as regards the position of the Vatican, and especially of the policy, especially of the late Pope Francis. So yes, I completely agree. They could be, there is a possibility and a need for them, for Ukrainian churches, actually to act as soft power of the Ukrainians. Yes. Yeah, thank you so very much.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, just a small like additional sentence. Well, I think all of us, we can understand why their soft power is soft because of the policy of Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, of course,
yes,
which is like policy of love and humanity and so on. Yeah. But at the same time, yeah, we can see for example, many priests in the wartime, they're like at the front line. We can see like many religious people. We can see some people who are praying to God. There is a good saying that, for example, like prisons and maybe hospitals, they know much more, a bigger amount of religious people for praying than maybe some other places, than churches even. Yeah. But still, I have a feeling that maybe like just Ukrainian, maybe our like soldiers, they need a bit like more big acting like thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you so much for such a great and deep research. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll go ahead and read a question that's in the chat from Yulia Chiron. She says, in your opinion, would the issue of the Moscow Patriarchate have become as acute if not for the war?
I think yes, maybe not as acute, but if we see these developments over the years of the Ukrainian independence. So I just told indicated in my presentation that actually this point when this issue has become as acute as never before was not even the beginning of the Russian-Ukrainian war, but the revolution of dignity, which has to do with the Ukrainian society seeing this church as being I would say, not natural within the this Maidan reality. So my answer is yes. I think so. Thank you.
Well, it's a shame to have to bring this wonderful session to a close. Thank you again, truly, Dr. Shlikhta, for your really fantastic research. And I know there are lots more questions that folks could ask, and I'll say that we can all be in touch via email if we have follow-up questions, and the recording will be placed on our YouTube channel so folks can share the recording around as well. And just thank you for everyone who attended today's sessions. Thank you to our speakers, and wishing all of you peaceful skies. And please know that we support you however we can, and really, really proud to be your colleagues.